Welcome back to ExPats. I'm your host, Joshua Downey, who was just told we were starting this recording 5 seconds ago. So I'm a little taken aback, but I'm going to start strong because it's freaking Vrabel Day here in New England, even though I'm not in New England, but I'm feeling like a New Englander more than usual. I got my retro Reebok hat on, and I'm feeling excited. Joined by Lucas Cobery, Vrabel hater, Ben Johnson lover, the ops of the day. But he's coming around. He's coming around. So, Lucas, send us off into the new Vrabel era.
No, I mean all week I've been kind of pulling for some Ben Johnson, some Detroit Lions news, but this week has been a bit of a roller coaster, and I think at very least we can say we got one of the best two candidates, and that's for sure. At least going into this, I may end up eating my words in 6 months, but I am definitely coming around to Vrabel. I mean, hearing him in the press conference today was really assuring. I think a lot of the things that he said about Drake May and culture and just his overall demeanor all day was pretty awesome to see. And a lot of the social media stuff and like a lot of the other YouTube stuff has been pretty cool to see him doing, just because he's clearly not Gerard Mayo, not to rip on Gerard Mayo or anything, but it's reaffirming to see that this guy has control of the team, the atmosphere. So I don't know. How'd you feel about it?
I don't know. It was almost startling to me. I experiencing it live. I didn't know if maybe it wasn't registering with me. But then I kind of started hearing guys, on the beat, Patriots reporters, podcasters, just things throughout the day. And it seemed to be kind of like a thing people were just in agreement on, which was like, this was so much different than, last year's, unveil of Gerard Mayo. And not in any way that's supposed to be, overwhelmingly like positive, but it almost just felt like, I don't want to say this, for fear of, living in retrospect here, but it felt a little more like Patriot-like. Like the Gerard Mayo thing felt like this whole, symbolic passing of the torch, like everyone showing up. Like it almost felt like, going to a wedding. Like you got the whole family there. Robert's joking about each individual member of the family. We have like what seemed like we waited for that. I don't know if you remember tuning into like the live stream of that last year, but we waited for a while. This year it was, you're getting in at 12. We got it at 12, and we were done very quickly. And, spent more time with the press conference questions than we did like the whole build up to, unveiling Mike Vrabel. Like we know who Vrabel is. We didn't know who Gerard Mayo was last year, other than, obviously loving him as a leader, of the defense for, as many years as he was as an active player. But this year, it was just different. It was like, we know, like, we're not going to do this whole song and dance for the Patriots. Mike Vrabel. He's one of the best coaches on the market. What he's good at. His strengths, and how he's going to attack some of the areas of our team that have been lacking, in the last 12 months. And I think, it kind of delivered in that way, that it was understated. It was subtle. It was just like, Vrabel doesn't want the song and dance. I don't think the Crafts, after, the embarrassment that was this past year, wanted a song and dance. They want it to be like, all right, we're back. We're getting back to work now. And, for what it's worth, a lot of people have been speculating as to whether or not they would have made this move last year had they not written in Gerard Mayo's contract that he was Bill Belichick's successor. Had they known that Tennessee would let him go, which clearly didn't seem to be a great move for them. But it's something to be, I think, excited about, honestly. Like if you're a New England sports fan, like seeing just how run-of-the-mill and business-like today was. Yeah. Vrabel is a different guy, and I think like you look at the coaches in the history of Boston sports that kind of land. It's the guys that have a little bit of a screw loose. It's the guys that like will come for your throat, while also having a sense of humor, and a distinct personality. I mean, right now the talk of the town is Joe Mazzulla. Like every week we get a new Joe Mazzulla clip, and everybody loves Joe Mazzulla, and he is a weirdo. He is freaking weird, dude. And Mike Vrabel's a weirdo too, dude. He is, as Paul Perillo was saying, a professional ball buster. And it's refreshing to see a guy just, walk into a room and be able to, build on relationships that he had while he was here. Notably talking to Karen Guregian in the press conference, like talking about how she hadn't changed much in, the almost 20 years it's been since he's been back. Like just little things like that where it's like, it's not that we want to return to the dynasty, because obviously we can discuss, how his coaching development has taken him in far different places than, in the Belichick, coaching tree outside of, working under Billy O in Houston. But it's just cool to know that he knows what it means to be a Patriot. He knows what it means to carry that. And he sure as hell, indicated that he was going to hold, the players to that standard, and talked about, weeding out a sense of entitlement and, just attacking that type of culture, which I think clearly anyone that's been watching Patriots football this season can attest to the fact that had been an issue in the building, particularly with younger players, I think, and even some vets.
Yeah, no, it's really cool, and like a lot of the things that he said were just like you can tell that guy walks into a room and he's not changing his personality for anybody. He's going in there and he's going to come out and people are going to follow whatever he's saying if it's that type of situation where you need somebody to step up. And just like even going on Twitter today, like you saw a lot of his highlights and stuff from his playing career in New England. And it's these big moments where he's catching touchdown passes in Super Bowls and making big time sacks. Like the man can came to play when it mattered. And I was somebody who wanted Ben Johnson so badly, but today being a New England Patriots fan, being a kid who was like 3-4 years old during all these Super Bowls, it was pretty cool to see, and it feels the way that Gerard Mayo I feel like should have felt, but definitely not. Like there was a lot of confidence behind it, and like it kind of goes back to something he said when he was talking about Drake May. Like you want to have confidence as an offense that you're gonna be able to score on a play that's called, and you want like that confidence going into a snap is huge. That's 95% of a play. If you know that it's going to work, you have the timing, whether it's a pass play, you have the timing as a running back, you're all on one page, and that's all you can ask out of your coach. And so, I mean, I'm
It
excited.
is it is funny seeing, like, where he was asked what his development or what his control over the development of Drake May would be like, and I'm not trying to create like a massive distinction between him and Mayo, because I think Mike Vrabel is going to be more of the CEO type coach that Mayo was looking to be, but I think he's going to have an emphasis on things that are more important to like the integral in-game sort of management and understanding that clearly was just from a disciplinary and just awareness standpoint missing this season. Specifically at the end of quarters and halves. I mean, look at all the issues we had late in the first half this year. Controlling the end of possessions. Controlling how it is we move into that second half of football, and we lost a lot of games at the end of the second quarter, I would say. And Vrabel said, "Look, I want to impact the way Drake May, understands where he is in the middle of the game, understands that type of management, understands the clock, understands situationally when we're going to be aggressive, like those things, like,
Mm-hmm.
big picture, I guess you can say culture type things, but, really just a situational understanding of where it is that we as a football team want to go." And that's what Dan Campbell did when he came into Detroit. He was like, we're going for every fourth down. We're an aggressive offense. We're doing these things that establish a winning culture. And obviously, he has a more broad hand in the way the Lions operated, and then he could trust guys like Aaron Glenn and like Ben Johnson to really focus on their craft and to coach, play calling and the important elements of running defenses, offenses. So I'm excited for that when it comes to Vrabel, because I do think Gerard just some of those, I guess you can call them small picture things, just really fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
With Gerard this year, like he really just dropped the ball in a lot of those situational game management aspects of the game. And it seems so simple that Vrabel comes out and says it, but I think it was targeted. It was like, hey, by the way, I know what it is, was our Achilles heel this year, because he also said we want to capitalize on bad football. And that's what
Yeah.
the Patriots did for 25 years. And for the last 3 years, we've been the bad football. Like, we've been a bad football team. And so
Yep.
if we can, the shoe can be on the other foot, we're not going to be, the most talented. We're not going to have the most skill. or speed or really anything right now. It'll be a couple years before we develop any sort of, I think, skill group position on our team to that point, to that extent. I mean, maybe, hey, you sign a Travarius Ward in the offseason and you might have the best corner room in football, but let's leave that conversation for later. But I think, hey, we can be a disciplined team that understands its roles respective to one another, and then go forward and capitalize on the bad football. And then maybe we can be like we were, in like 2021 or 2022 when we're not, fundamentally the best like defense in the NFL, but we're, ranking first or second in turnovers. Like that's capitalizing on bad football is how you get those breaks. And as much as I've ripped might be a strong word, but I've talked about how some of that turnover dependency leads to, failures when it starts to dry up. But it also is, being situational, being prepped, being coached by someone like Bill Belichick that gets you to the point where you can really kind of capitalize on those mistakes and get those turnovers. And the coin starts to flip your way. You start calling heads, it lands on heads when you're prepared, when you're fundamentally ready. And it's unfortunate because a lot of stuff has come out in the last week plus about Gerard Mayo's, organizational issues and failures during his tenure. And I feel for him because I think Gerard is a man, especially as a player and potentially as a leader, like is a good dude. But some of the stuff just was like not indicative of a head coach. And it's unfortunate because he wasn't ready. And I'm not sure he has what it takes to be a head coach, let alone a defensive coordinator, because we haven't seen that either. So it's a question moving forward for him that I hope he, finds an answer to.
I think he'll be able to catch on. Hopefully. I mean, he's also a smart guy who can catch on to other things. Like Gerard Mayo, he's done it before. It wouldn't surprise me if he just never came back to the NFL and had a successful career doing other things. But he's you kind of brought up something that I want to talk about, and like with the Dan Campbell being able to trust Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Something we've talked about in the past, like Vrabel doesn't call his own plays. He's not going to be this type of defensive mastermind. I mean, hopefully he can get two guys, and so I think the biggest coordinator position to fill is without a doubt the offensive coordinator. I don't even think that goes for discussion. So like, I mean, there are a couple guys that like a lot of people have been talking about, but I don't know how much any of them really sound that familiar, or that like my whole thing is I'm not totally sure if I see the potency or the upside of a lot of these coordinators on the bubble or whatever you want to call it on the docket that you're going to have to interview. And I'm nervous that while you have this great culture, you may not be able to skill your way. I mean, we've had a couple of discussions over the last few days about just getting more skill in, and I think that's a great idea how to do it. But at the end of the day, unless you're willing to put Drake May's body on the line and go 11 versus 11 and really just play one-on-one the whole game, you're going to have scheme to get even your best guys open. So this offensive coordinator position in general who gets on the docket is huge. That is my biggest concern. That's been my biggest concern about Vrabel. If you want to get a guy like Tommy Rees, I think is a guy who's kind of interesting to me just because he's from the college game, and I've been with the college football 25 coming out this year. I've taken my time to really get to know the sport, and it's unique because you really get. I did not watch college football until this year, but it's unique because you're relying on the athletes more so than like the plays, because the wide side is so big in college. And I mean, obviously the plays matter a ton. That's why people like Steve Sarkisian are so dominant and get guys like Quinn Ewers to the college football playoff and have a great defense, obviously. But this is a huge decision. So I'm very curious to hear if you have any opinions on who people should be.
I do like that you the first thing you said was that a lot of the candidates weren't familiar, which is like you're like totally right in that assumption, except for the fact that the number one candidate everyone's been throwing around for the last week and a half is Josh McDaniels. So
no.
Yeah. Well, that's
no.
that's your opinion, but I mean, it's funny how so many people on the media have just suddenly been like, "Yes, let's go back to McDaniel's,"
I
and
know.
they point to, first of all, a lot of them have switched up. I will say, so I accuse you of switching up all the time, and then I, will eventually point the finger at myself for doing the same. But a lot of these guys have been like, you know what? Screw it. Josh McDaniels actually, look what he did with Cam Newton's year. And then look what he
Yeah.
did in 2021 with Mac Jones. And we were like top 10 in scoring, which admittedly is pretty impressive. Now, that was a year we invested a boatload uh, into our offense through free agency. And, we also had a pretty, I think, special defense. Maybe not
Everything
special
was
in
all
terms
over
of
its on
like
that
all
year.
time, but just they were like
They were
fundamentally
clutch.
sound,
Yeah.
particularly in the beginning of the year when like we had a healthy Judon just raking.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's interesting. But yeah, I would love to hear your opinion on McDaniels because fundamentally I do think that there's more versatility than maybe than you're giving him credit for. But I also agree that from my standpoint, and if I'm Vrabel, honestly, I'm kind of like, why is it that I want to bring in like a third time offensive coordinator into this building when the whole point is that we're moving forward? And when a lot of people have asked him, today during media, they're like, hey, what's your connection to Bill? And he's like, I'm grateful for Bill, but he very quickly kind of bats down, like really leaning into these Bill connections and trying to praise Bill and talk like he's his own man and he wants you to know it. And
Yeah.
he understands what this past year was, a failed succession plan. I think while a legend in the building, a New England Patriots Hall of Famer, he has his eyes set on a different prize. And the prize is not being Bill Belichick's little boy that, takes us into another generation of, winning championships. And he understands that. And that's something that I think comes with hiring a Josh McDaniels. You're going to have to answer some Bill questions. And I'm not sure he wants that, but it seems like a lot of people think he wants it. And obviously Josh, as a lot of people have talked about the last day, has done a little college tour this year, learning what the college side of the game is like. And who knows? Maybe that can open up some of Drake May's NFL development. So that's been a topic of conversation today. I'm not sure I buy it completely, and you can tell me what you think. I think Josh McDaniels, the head coach, and Josh McDaniels, the offensive coordinator, are two very different beasts, and I don't want to hold him to the failures of Vegas and Denver necessarily. But I also agree that I want to move forward in some ways, and maybe that comes with getting like a Nick Caley or getting someone like a QB coach from LA, the Rams, like going after these McVay, Shanahan tree guys, but the ones that aren't play callers yet or maybe designated as offensive coordinators. I'm interested to see where we can go in that department. Maybe those guys aren't ready again. Like I think a fundamental issue with these styles of offenses is just that the head coach, when they inevitably get promoted, they end up having their hands in the pot just so much that there's less responsibility that's shared. So it's really harder to know whether or not some of these guys coming out are like worth investing in. But
Yeah.
also, it's like, how much is their attention then directed towards other areas of the team? And we see certain lapses. I mean, the 49ers, they've had a great run, and it's hard to discount Kyle Shanahan, but there have been key moments of, I think, mismanagement on his part that have cost them a couple Super Bowls. And again, it's unfortunate when you're playing Patrick Mahomes in multiple Super Bowls, so I try not to hold him too much responsible. And while Sean McVay got one, I also think the Rams just had a very different approach from a front office standpoint about how it was that they were going to invest in team success, and they basically sold out for that one championship in 2021. So, or 2022. What season? I mean, I guess that was the 2021 season. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm interested. I need to see like a good outside of the 49ers because they're an interesting. I don't want to say exception to the rule, and I also really do think Sean McVay is an excellent coach, but he's one of those guys where, contrary to Ben Johnson, like he just seems like a people person right out the gate. And I think like if you're on the defensive side of the ball and your offensive play calling head coach is going to be devoting a lot of time to those guys, and he's going
Hmm.
to be going out to dinner with Matthew Stafford while you might be a second string safety. I'm like, I haven't even talked to my head coach like as much like you want kind of that magnanimous, like you want a presence in the room. And I'm not sure Ben Johnson had that. And I think Vrabel, while more of a disciplinarian, I think he's also someone that clearly is loved by his players and will like go up to bat for you if he knows you're trying, your utmost hard, you're just as hard as you possibly can, and you're representing the city and team to the best of your ability. That's important to Mike Vrabel, and then he'll go out and die for you. So that's interesting. And again, I agree with you. Like I do want to see some progressive moves made on the offensive staff. Again, we're throwing out names like Nick Caley, Josh McDaniels, Zach Cromer, other people, like maybe some people in LA more than elsewhere. But just what are your thoughts? Do you think maybe, I guess you can't get a Liam Cohn, like who are maybe some of these coaches on staffs that aren't yet play callers or coordinators, because obviously they can't, without the consent of their team, make a lateral move from coordinator to coordinator, even if they're getting a play calling job. Because that's what's going to be enticing about this Patriots job is you're going to be a play caller. You don't have to worry about, like, if Ben Johnson is your boss, you're kind of just like a figurehead in some ways, but you probably end up just focusing on, like, hey, I got quarterbacks or tight ends or whatever. Like it becomes more symbolic than practical. So I don't know. I think there's something really enticing about our job. I just hope it goes to like someone young and hungry, and we might lose him in a couple years. But if we get some ingenuity on the offensive side of the ball, what that can do for Drake May's game going forward, much like, in my opinion, as we've discussed, particularly in the last 24 hours, getting like an X receiver, even if it costs a lot of money, like what that can do then for his future development when maybe he outgrows like an X receiver or an offensive coordinator. And then we're looking at what we're seeing from Josh Allen, which is one of his worst supporting casts. Granted, James Cook is, I think, a top-end running back right now, but he's playing the best he's ever played, and Josh Allen looks like a Hall of Fame quarterback right now.
You have to. Sorry. You have to get the names that people should get familiar with. Josh McCown is a big one. Guy is, I've seen a lot of him on TikTok. He obviously former quarterback in the league, albeit a backup, but like guy that definitely you should get familiar with is Josh McCown. I think that's a good move. McDaniels, if you want to talk about him, I need to see some quarterback run developed into his game, and I think I've said it before. I'll say it a million times. RPOs, that kind of stuff, like read options, zone reads, like even getting cool options where it's like you're empty and like it's a quick quarterback pull it down decision. You know what I mean? Anything like that. We need to get some ingenuity in this offense. So it's going to have to happen quick if you want McDaniels, and I think the beauty of McDaniels is that he'll be like a Spagnuolo here, which would be so dope. But I have yet to have seen anything from McDaniels. Something that people should be like excited about though is the fact that Lazar, like we've both referenced this 100 times, Patriots Unfiltered, they're interviewing Vrabel today, and Lazar tells Vrabel that his favorite run play is power, and they start talking about the fullback. That is McDaniels. That is Josh McDaniels, and you'll take Cam Scatterbo and you'll turn him into Jakob Johnson, and that's just a ridiculous name to throw out there. But
yeah,
weaponizing
also
the offense, no.
I think that was more a Lazar thing than it was a Vrabel thing. Like Lazar's like, I just love power, and Vrabel's like, yeah, you're gonna need a fullback if you want to run power, right? And so it was just like, I'm not sure he's saying like, we're gonna get a fullback, we're gonna get Josh McDaniels, and we're running a lot of power. It might have just been like, you like power? Run it in this offense with this team right now. It might have been Vrabel testing him a little bit because they hailed him up as this X and O's guy in our building. And
I know.
Lazar is kind of just like, I love power, which I don't blame him. I mean, power's freaking awesome.
Dope.
Yeah.
We ran a lot of power in high school. I would have said trap or something if he had asked me. I would have said something cool. No, I would have said wide zone. But
I just wanted him to be like, screw the run. Let's run some leak. I was expecting some of that.
No, yeah. No, I haven't thought that smooth. Come on now.
I don't know. You might not be. I'm looking at, just some offensive coordinator hot candidates, and obviously Tommy Rees, another one, college experience, as you had mentioned. Tim Kelly, New York Giants tight ends coach, allegedly. I think pretty much anyone in that Daboll system, despite their offense having quarterback issues, I feel like they might, come out looking the wiser when you get a 1,000-yard rookie receiver. You get an unreal performance out of Tyrone Tracy. You get Drew Lock throwing, 4 touchdown passes in a game in the NFL. Like, who knows? Even though, it's the tight ends coach. But Nick Caley, passing game coordinator, LA Rams. We talked about him. He's been connected with us, has some Belichick links, and was someone that we had considered, we reached out to last season and I think rejected us. So maybe that changes when you have an actual, head coach in the building. And again, as you said, Josh McCown is another one. So this is USA Today's top 5 hot offensive coordinator coaches, not to, just focus on like a crappy website for information, but these are the guys that a lot of people are talking about. And as you mentioned them, I mentioned them, it seems like everyone mentions the McCowns, the Reeses, the McDaniels. These are guys that are getting a lot of attention.
I just want to see Evan Lazar in the bill. I need to see that. Let the man call plays.
I'm tired. I'm tired of the nerds, dude. I'm tired of you and the nerds. I'm so tired.
I need the nerds. The nerds are. All right, you want to hear a benefit of Vrabel? Vrabel's going for it on 4th downs. That's something I'm excited about. That guy's
that's a nerdy move.
All right,
but that's a heart on your sleeve nerdy move. That's not like a he's studying analytics. That's Vrabel's. No, that's Vrabel's. Just like going for it. It's not like I crunched the numbers and 48 times out of 57 times you get the first down and you're in the 30-yard line. Like okay. Vrabel's a warrior, dude.
But last night the Commanders go for they kicked twice, right? Like they should have kicked. They had 3 4th downs inside the 30-yard line, and they decide to go for all 3 of them, and don't get 3 of them, right? So at this point they're down. I think it's like I forget. I wish I could remember what the score was, but they were down. They ended up being down, and then. So it must have been like 20-16 or something like that, right? Or 20 to no, it was 20 to 13, right? So they've missed 3 field goals. 3 field goals puts them up in that game, 22-20. But they get down, they go for it again because they actually freaking have to get it, tie the game on 4th down, 4th and goal, right? Like touchdown, get a stop, go. The whole game, I'm sitting there screaming, why aren't you kicking this? There's times when it's smart to kick. That's my best.
Absolutely. And Vrabel's not full Dan Campbell. Like he's intelligent.
That was Dan Quinn. Don't give Dan Campbell that full.
No, what I'm saying, I know that's Dan Quinn. What I'm saying is that's a Dan Campbell mentality thing, and it's like I respect some of it. Like watching Dan Campbell can be infuriating sometimes when it comes to those decisions, and I don't think it was as bullheaded from Dan Quinn last night. I think it's more like, I don't know if we trust our defense as much as we trust Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, which is honestly fair. Like, I understand where they're coming from. I don't think, anyone has a particular faith in Washington's defensive capabilities, particularly against a playoff offense and Baker Mayfield, who'd been torching defenses all year. So I see why there's situationally you're more aggressive against certain teams, but yeah, I mean that's one where you're definitely kicking yourself, and whether or not your kicker is cold or he's got a knock or something, like maybe that can play into it, but for sure I agree. Like you don't always want to go for everything, and I kind of feel that way about like I agree, you need nerds in the building, absolutely. The Patriots have been antiquated in a lot of ways when it comes to this sort of thing. But I'm just from like a culture and winning standpoint, a lot of these guys, I just don't know if I don't know if there are nearly as many Sean McVays as there are Adam Gases. That's what I'll say. I think a lot of these guys come in with their big brains and they don't know the first thing about like actually coaching a football team, and then you set your organization back a couple years. And I don't necessarily think that's I think Ben Johnson might be one of the smartest of these kind of guys we've ever seen. I just don't know if he can lead an entire football team. And we're going to find out, because if he does end up going to Vegas, where he's linked to right now, like that's going to be a project. And you're going to have some obviously financial capital, and you're in a new city, so they're going to want to have, the goodwill of the fans, and there's going to be some motivation on that end. Like, I don't know. Again, you have a generational tight end. You have some pieces here and there. You have Max Crosby. I don't know if he's going to stay or if he's going to want to stay. It would have been cool to see Ben Johnson here. I agree. Like, it would have, like, if there was a spot I feel like it would have worked for him, it was either here or Chicago. So for his sake, I'm thinking he goes to Chicago in the best interest of his career, because if he does end up going to LA, or Vegas rather, Tom Brady must have had like a big hand in that, because I don't see much in the way of wanting to go to that organization. For as like flawed as it is in a lot of ways, I don't see it. Even though the Bears have clearly had issues from developing, particularly the quarterback, since the dawn of time. But
Yeah, I'll be, I if I were him, I'd be trying to go to Jacksonville. Jacksonville is so underrated. Like you got a
yeah,
few
I mean
pieces.
they're
You got a top 5 receiver. You got a decent defense. You got some real pieces on the defense too, and then I mean, like, what you got 2 good running backs, solid tight end. I mean, I don't know what that is. Just bad coaching. Unless Trevor Lawrence is bad, I mean, I would be doing that way over Chicago, and definitely. Here's the one that I was talking to my dad about last night. The New York Jets job. Why would anybody take that job? Like, they really might have to hire Rex Ryan because somebody's going to coach him.
Oh, I have to talk to you about something so funny about Rex Ryan. Oh my God, but keep talking, yeah.
No, I mean, I was just like that. I thought about it. He was saying you get 2 shots, right? So Vrabel's on his second shot. Ben Johnson's about to be on his first chance.
Who wants that? Yeah.
Yeah. Why would you go to New York?
It's like wasting one of your 9 lives, except you have only 2, and it's on the Jet. I mean, I agree with you, dude. Totally. I mean, as much as we've kind of lambasted some of the Mayo leaks and things that have come out in the last couple of weeks, imagine some of these crappy ass Woody Johnson things that are flying around. Like, my God, that is such a flawed ownership structure, and it makes me happy as a New England sports fan. But I really do feel bad for the New York Jets fans, because you already got screwed in life. It's like being a Nets fan in New York, or like, a Clippers fan in LA. Like, your life already is a little bit worse than everyone else's. But then you're screwed with like an ownership structure like that, where like at least the Clippers have Steve Ballmer, right? Like, you have Woody freaking Johnson, who just seems intent on pulling a move of a Jets player of past years and Plaxico Burressing himself left and right, every time he has the opportunity to do so. So that is, you're right. I mean, maybe the Rex Ryan, I can't see it. They get someone, dude. They might. Maybe someone's like, I'm going to get an opportunity a year earlier. Maybe it's like a Liam Cohen, like maybe it's someone that like tests their luck a little earlier than some other teams are willing to give them the chance for. But I just can't see why on earth they would go backwards when
I don't know why
their whole history is backwards. I agree with you though, completely. But this was a funny thing. So yesterday, we're recording this on Monday. So Sunday they announced Vrabel, and on ESPN, obviously they're doing coverage throughout the day of the wild card playoff games. And when they break the news about Mike Vrabel, obviously Greeny shifts to Teddy Bruschi on the panel, former Patriots linebacker, teammate of Mike Vrabel, clearly someone that's a fan of Vrabes. And while was remorseful about Mayo not getting a second chance, was like, Vrabes is a different guy. He's kind of Parcells-like he holds you accountable, but he's also kind of a player's coach. Like, Teddy was in on him, and also said that he was going to hold people in the front office accountable, essentially, is what he was alluding to. So that was all interesting. But then they shift to Rex Ryan. I'm like, Rex Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you.
And Rex Ryan's first thing he says, well, first let me say, I hope I get the chance to kick his ass twice a year. And I'm just like, oh, this poor dude actually thinks he's going to be a head coach in the NFL again. Holy cow, that was so funny. Like, I just died laughing. Because it's like, I don't know how the other guys on the panel, they had Fred Warner. Sometimes they'll bring in like a current player. They had Fred Warner, Teddy Bruschi, Alex Smith on that panel. And I'm surprised not one of them bust out laughing in his face. But at the same time, it is Woody Johnson and the Jets, so who knows? But the fact that the first thing he said, which is just such an arrogant, Rex Ryan thing to do, is to just be like, well, I'm going to be the head coach of the Jets and I'm going to kick his ass to it. Like, it's piss off, dude. Like, you need to have some level of humility given how the job went for you the first time around towards the end, and how little interest you garnered in the league after the fact. So maybe have a little bit more humility and he just doesn't have it. Rex Ryan does not have it. And it is so funny watching someone so arrogant just continue to look like an oaf. on national television. It makes me happy, and I hope he stays in that ESPN role so he can continue to say asinine things like that and get caught for it. So that was like my favorite thing of yesterday, was seeing that reaction.
No, he's a joker. He's a joker for sure. Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know why you would take that job if you're anybody other than him. He really might be the only, and maybe they call up Urban Meyer at that point.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Something we should probably touch on is the boy Elliott Wolf too. I mean, we've probably been pretty harsh on the whole personnel department, and for good reason. But I don't know if you saw this. He feels confident in his system, and he wants to see what this year is gonna give to it. So I mean, it better hit, or else we're just wasting another year. But it'll be very interesting for sure. So
it's funny. I felt one coming from my own throat, and I think all of New England let loose a collective sigh when they talked to Vrabes about some personnel stuff, and he's like, "We got to bring in good players," and then he's like, "That's a joke between me and Elliot. We kind of just got to talking, and we're like, we need good players, and that's their new joke." And I'm like, you sure?
Yeah. What does that mean? How is that an inside joke?
I feel like that's just a joke as old as corny football coach joke, to just be like, "Hey, we need good players," and it's like, "Oh yeah, do we?" You know, like it just. I get it. I think. I honestly, the only thing I can think of is that the Crafts have an unwavering faith. At least Robert does, in Elliott Wolf, in that part of the onboarding process for Vrabes is like, listen, we're giving Wolf another go. Like, we need you guys to collaborate. Like, maybe we don't know that Vrabel has a little bit more power in terms of final say, because he might have earned that more than Wolf has, given how the last couple years have gone here in New England. But like, I just don't. It's really hard for me not to look at, obviously there's a lack of player development, but there's just a lack of player awareness and talent and scouting these last couple of years. And Elliott Wolf's going to have to do a lot this year. And the new buzz thing that's been going around that pisses me off, I really don't like it, is like the whole, well, actually, they've been kind of working on implementing a new whole scouting and talent system. And it wasn't put in last offseason because they were still using Bill's system. They're actually now just starting to use Elliott Wolf's system. And that's what the guys have been saying all in the media, but, unfiltered guys and whatnot. And I'm just like, that is such a freaking cop-out to me. Because it's like, I don't care whose freaking system you use. Like, and again, I know hindsight is 20/20, but it's hard for me not to go back and watch Jalen Polk in college and think what I thought watching Jalen Polk in college, which is he is a scrappy, good possession receiver. He doesn't need to be, a top 10 pick in the second round. Like, it's just ridiculous that we made some of the decisions we made. And Drake May was a shoo-in obvious choice. I'm just wondering, like, does Bill Belichick's, scouting system also take away half of Elliott Wolf's brain cells, or do we get those back now that he's implementing his own scouting system? I just don't know. Like, that bothered me to no end.
I think it's hard to. There's no shot you thought Jalen Polk was going to be this bad going. This is bad coaching having to do with that. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be completely surprising if this guy came out and had. I'm not saying he's going to be an all-pro, but had a solid season, 60 catches.
But I was like,
insane?
I just don't. Watching games, I like Jalen McMillan more than I like Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan looked like a better receiver than Jalen Polk this year. So.
He's been really good. So I mean, it's easier playing across from. I mean, the thing you have to remember is it's easier playing with better talent on your team. Like that's.
But I mean, Mike Evans was injured a lot of this year. Chris Godwin injured a lot of this year. Kate Otten, ended up stepping up. But Jalen McMillan has had to deal with not like sometimes he wasn't producing because he's like the only receiver out there on the field. So it's like Mike Evans wasn't around. Why do you think there was such a? I mean, 1,000 yards. It took them so long in the season to get it because he wasn't playing some games. Chris Godwin obviously out for a majority of the season after playing like an all-pro player. So
It kind of brings us to the good talent and like the AJ Brown of it all. I think we should get some credit. I think you should get some credit for steering a little bit of PU today. I mean, the guy gave some good commentary, and we got into it pretty good last night. Newsflash: AJ Brown is probably a good player. I wonder if that's what they meant by that inside joke. That AJ Brown's probably the type of player that they want to bring into this building. And well, my whole thing is AJ Brown will be 28 at the start of next season, 29 by the time you have that draft pick that you'll end up trading him for, right? If you're gonna give away that future first round pick. And I think it's got to be either a future first round pick or it's a second round this season. And I just don't think it's worth giving up a second round. You have a shot at
I don't know.
You're
That's
not
crazy.
giving up
That's
a second.
crazy.
You're not giving up a. I'm not giving up a second round pick to get AJ Brown, man.
I am absolutely giving up a second round pick on AJ Brown, and I am slamming the draft button on either Will Campbell or Kelvin Bakes. Potentially we can trade back and then get another second round pick anyway. Like, I'm thinking multiple seconds and maybe a third. Because look, I was looking at recent like trade packages for wide receivers that are at the top of the game in the NFL, and you're right. Like, a lot of them predicate getting first round picks, but a lot of them are like when the Dolphins traded for Tyreek Hill, they traded like the 29th overall pick. I would trade the 29th overall pick, because that means, A, we're probably in a better position than the Patriots are right now. And B, A.J. Brown's, an all-pro caliber player. So I'm thinking, that's the reason why we're kind of comparing these to other trades. We're like, oh, you're going to get a first-round pick. Like, a lot of these guys are going for, like, high 20s picks, which I'm comfortable giving up if I have them. We just don't have them because we've been so poor that we have early second, early first. And we have a lot of top 100 picks this year. We can still acquire more. We can still trade draft assets for more draft assets or trade guys for more draft capital. Like, we have no shortage of moves that can be made. And I do think, like, maybe you were so put off by the notion of bringing in a guy that's had some drama, and you made an asinine comment last night that I have to address here publicly when you said he's falling off a cliff. Like, come on, dude. That is ridiculous. You cannot say that, because now you're a little softer once Lazar said, yeah, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL. I'd trade a future first for him. If Lazar's not saying he's falling off, then maybe your opinion will change about him falling off. Because in my opinion, it's, like Jalen Hurts might look good to you because he has 17 seconds to throw in the pocket. I want to know what his time to throw is normally. I don't value Jalen Hurts as a passer of the football. And again, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown have battled some injuries this year. Saquon has looked unbelievable. That running game has been unstoppable. But I think you can still see very productive seasons out of A.J. Brown. And I think he loves Vrabel. And again, he cried when he wasn't drafted by the Patriots in 2019. This is a guy that likes the organization, that has respect for Bob Kraft, that understands the winning culture.
Kraft is crazy.
Dude, I think he wanted to get a call from Kraft and Belichick. He was going to cry. He cried. He cried in his closet. He went in his closet and cried, dude.
That's
this is
crazy.
A guy, dude, he loves Mike Vrabel.
And
Mike Vrabel went to bat for him.
We are not the same
We
team.
have his first head coach. Obviously, we're not the same team. We have his head coach. And we are – and you're like, well, how are we supposed to, compete? Other people might trade in the first. Like, I don't know if many other teams – like, this has been a rough season for him. Him and Jalen Hurts, in terms of their relationship, I think it's kind of taken some hits, which is true. It's true. They've been talking about this in the media. Even Lane Johnson comes out and talks about this. So I don't know what the hell you're what-duding. But they've been bickering like, broken up teen sweethearts, and it's been all over the place. I think he's on the market. And how many teams do you know are going to be able to trade for a guy that's already signed an extension? Contending teams, because we're just going to be battling with, I think, mediocre teams for him, because I don't know many teams that have filled out their roster that have enough cap space to just trade for a guy that's going to make, over $30 million a year. So we are actually in a unique position to get a guy like that and potentially not sacrifice as much, because Howie Roseman might just have to offload him because he doesn't want to be there anymore. And he's kind of put in a position where he's forced into a hand. Like, that is very possible. I get you think of, Howie Roseman is this guru of NFL GMery, and he kind of is. But he's not someone that just is going to turn crap into gold and fool everyone in the NFL into giving away 5 first-round picks for a guy that wants out of his building. That's not how it's going to work. That's not how diva receivers work.
He did that to get A.J. Brown. He fleeced the Titans. Like, fleeced. Dude, look up the A.J. Brown trade. He fleeced him. It's directly the reason why Vrabel is.
But what does fleecing someone for undervalue for a pick have to do with then trading? We're talking about he has been a brilliant GM in terms of getting players in. In terms of time. The difference between talent acquisition and offloading talent that is causing you issues are very different.
You're not getting A.J. Brown for anything less than he's fleecing. If you wanted to try to get him,
he's not God.
I'm not saying that he is, but he's going to understand that he has a unbelievable receiver, and he's not just going to give him away. Like, we're talking about a second-round pick. Like, I think you can get somebody who's – that whole game yesterday was built off the Philadelphia Eagles having a fundamentally unbelievable line. And if they wanted to throw the ball, they could. But they were just punching the Packers in the mouth down after down. I think he understands that A.J. Brown is still a good receiver, and he's not just going to give him away. That said, I'd rather spend that second-round pick trying to swing and miss on a good offensive lineman to do what the Eagles have done.
Look, I think you can get an offensive lineman in the first and third, and then I'm not even saying we trade this year second. Like, I think you can trade future assets for A.J. Brown. I think that you call him off a cliff and wash 1 second, and then you think that Howie Roseman realizes he is an all-pro guy and he's going to want first-round picks for him the next. Like, you got to pick a lane, my friend, about the A.J. Brown conversation, because I think we all know that he's not getting the service from Jalen Hurts that he would from Drake May. I think this marriage would work. I think the Mike Vrabel thing makes it work. I think you're giving up less than you think you are, because rarely do you see in these situations guys that are causing problems or at the root of certain problems organizationally going for these premium prices. It just doesn't happen very much. And again, he's in his later 20s. So even then, I don't even know if the value you would have gotten him for when he was 25 initially when he first got traded. Like, I see it is more like diminished than that, because in the NFL, skill position assets diminish every single year. The less years you have them, the farther those contract years go into their 30s, they diminish. So I think Howie Roseman would be ignorant to be like, no, I'm going to play hardball with everyone in the NFL, or everyone that's interested with A.J. Brown in the NFL, and then he's caught with a guy that's maybe holding out that doesn't want to be there, and then he's forced to trade him for pennies on the dollar, or he just keeps him around and they continue to not utilize him to the best extent of his ability, and he keeps putting up one catch in the playoffs and key playoff games, and he's paying him over $30 million to be, a glorified blocker. So
what does it matter if they're winning games like they are? And they have all this. They have all the leverage.
What does it matter if they're winning games? Then to continue winning games, and if they actually want to win playoff games, they're going to say, hey, this guy's only getting 5 targets a game. Why are we paying him $30 million? If we can have third-string receivers, if we can have Jahan Dotson, scoring in playoff games, it's like, if we're just going to keep investing in our line, great. It's working for us. We have Devonta Smith still, his contract being what it is. We don't need to have 2 receivers of this caliber if we don't have the quarterback play and talent to get these guys both the ball at a clip that necessitates their contracts being as high as they are. That's the thing, is that they don't – it's not like what does it matter? They're winning. If they want to continue winning, the way the NFL works, constant turnover, you're going to have to keep reinvesting in your team in different areas, keep the depth fresh, keep the youth going in. They can't afford to be playing or paying extraneous, skill position players that aren't, putting up stats to back up their numbers. And it's not necessarily because of their talent. It's because of, you're right, the way the team is structured, the scariness of that offensive line. But also, yes, say they didn't invest in the offensive line and they're just we have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, let's go. I don't think if you're limiting A.J. Brown if you're limiting Jalen Hurts' time in the pocket and you're telling him get the ball out in under like 2.5 seconds, like I don't think he'll be a good quarterback in that position. That's how you know he's not really a great quarterback when it comes to purely passing the football. I think you're right. Like he's probably top 10, like fringe top 10 quarterback, and I'm willing to change that opinion every year because he was crowned after the Super Bowl year, and yeah, he had a fantastic Super Bowl, and he has been nothing since. Like he has not been a special passer of the football whatsoever. He's been great if you just factor in the dual threat aspect of his game and the threat that provides. And again, like having a top 5 offensive line in the league year in and year out helps that side of the run game. It helps maybe some zone read stuff. So I don't know.
Knowing that you have a quarterback who is maybe not the top talent, why would you suddenly decide that taking away one of his best weapons is a good idea? Like we've established that going into this, you have weapons, and that's why this thing works. Like you're just churning out first down because you have the guys and you have a solid scheme. Like Kellen Moore is a good offensive coordinator, but you have the scheme that's going to get these guys open. And why would you suddenly decide that while he's maybe not putting up the numbers week after week, he'll have games where he's getting the ball 10 times for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns? Like that is the ever looming threat with them. You have to put your best guy on one of the 2 of them, and then you're gonna have to shut down the other 2 while having to stop Saquon and Jalen Hurts. That's the threat of that offense. Kellen Moore is a good offensive coordinator, but he's not Ben Johnson. He's not Kevin O'Connell. He's not Sean McVay. He's not Kyle Shanahan. He's not these guys who are just getting their guys into the right situation. Like, I think he's like a point guard type quarterback, and you have to have some, like, if you're going to be that new brand of game manager is what I'm going to call it, where you're taking the zone read and you're dishing the ball out quickly, and maybe when the defense is pulled up on you, you take a shot to A.J. Brown. Why would you suddenly decide that formula is not going to work?
Because then just get a cheaper deep target. Like, just get a fast receiver. Here's an idea. You trade us a second-round pick for A.J. Brown, you guys take Isaiah Bond. And then you have a guy that's running a 4.2 speed down the field. Listen, you have a guy that runs 4.2 speed down the field, so now, maybe you have to play more cover 2 against them. You open things up. You're worried, about that explosive threat downfield, but you're not paying Isaiah Bond $30 million to get more than like 5 targets every 4 weeks. What you're saying is that threat is important. They're not paying him to be a threat to go off every 4 weeks to get over like 5 targets. Like, it's about, you want your target share to be equivalent to the amount of money you're bringing in as a receiver, or the amount of money you're being paid as a receiver.
Like
what?
Kittle and Ayuk and Debo and all those, like Ayuk throws a hissy fit because Ayuk is a freaking Debo.
Debo's gone this year. Debo's not. They have too many guys up for contract this year and next year. Debo's gone this year. They're not going to be afford to pay all those guys. Kittle is the only one worth his salt right now. In terms of contract value
sure.
on that team.
But for the last 4 years, those guys have just been splitting targets. And, it's the threat of all of those guys that makes each and every one of them better. We've established this with the Patriots.
McCaffrey also, don't forget. McCaffrey
that's
is
the
being
big
the most
thing,
important part of that whole equation. Yeah.
Well, I didn't even include the best player. That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, why would you take out one of those pieces? Like, they're already on the decline as those guys get older. Why would you not run it back with A.J. Brown? And
A.J. Brown has had more than 6 receptions once this season. So even when he puts up like 110, which I think is his highest on the season is 119. It's on 5 receptions. It's like a couple 70-yard plays. So I'm seeing a whole bunch of 5s, 2s, 4s, a couple 8s. He's had 2 8s, but the last 2 weeks, 3 receptions, 1 reception. Like,
because he's not the same physically. Like, his game was him being Hulk out there, and him just being big body, put it on me, I'm gonna carry my corner and the safety into the end zone. And that type of, we're seeing with Debo, that type of stuff falls off a cliff fast, dude.
Debo is a much different player than AJ Brown. That's
physicality sense, though.
I don't think it's AJ Brown still, as I'm saying, like, his targets have taken a steep dive. He has the second less receptions he's had his entire career. he isn't even a clip 70 this season. He still has over 1,000 yards. He's still burning people. He's still physical. He's still fast. He's still
There's
setting
other
amazing
weapons
blocks
on
out
the
on
other
the
guys.
edges. No, he's still an elite receiver. He's just playing with an inferior quarterback when it comes to passing and arm talent. Everyone, like, people
So why
see
wouldn't
this.
they just put him underneath and try and feed him the ball if he's playing with a guy who has inferior talent?
Because that's not what his skill set is as a player.
That's how he
His skill
started
set's
now. He started being a guy over the middle of the field.
he can be elite, but we're talking like 15, 20 yards down the field. We're not talking about 5-yard slants left and right. That's not where he's
That's
too
how
big.
he started.
That's how he started when we're talking about a Derrick Henry offense, which was very much physical at the point of attack. We're also talking about a LaFleur-led team. Like we're talking about very different things than a 27-year-old A.J. Brown now that is one of the best perimeter deep threats in the NFL and has been for the last 4 years.
What offensive line is going to protect Drake May long enough to get A.J. Brown the ball on a deep ball?
The one that drafts a first-round tackle, that signs, I can list you a couple free
So we're
agent
just not going
tackles
to
this
worry
year.
about the defense.
You can't worry about the defense. You don't need to do in the first 2 rounds of the draft. I'm sorry. I don't know what the myth of the defense is for you that, like, we dropped. I understand the fear from people in New England about, how our defense looks right now and that it's fallen off a cliff and it looks worse than the offense. It still was a 10th ranked defense last year and it dropped to the mid-20s. Like, I think you get some discipline and organizational awareness in there, and like it automatically, like our defense is better today than it was yesterday with Mike Vrabel. We just need to invest in certain areas. We need health. We need Jawan Bentley back. We need Barmore back. We need areas to be shored up from a health standpoint. It's not crazy because I think if you get Trevarius Ward, your secondary is immediately better, and then you can sign maybe an edge or two. Like you can do a lot more in free agency from an edge standpoint than you can from a tackle. So that's why I'm saying draft that tackle first. And again, I'm not even saying you trade that second-round pick for A.J. Brown this year, but I'm saying it's a possibility for trading futures because you can trade futures. That's a thing you're allowed to do. In case you knew.
Well, first of all, I had forgotten about it, right? Like,
yeah, apparently.
Truthfully, I really had forgotten about it. But why would you risk that? Like, you've seen this guy not produce the same way that he was as an athlete 2 years ago, 3 years ago when they were getting him the ball.
But I think it's hard to blame that all on him. There's different offensive coordinators. You have the best running back in football right now, and you have a quarterback that does not have premier arm talent.
Why would you not? Why would you risk that?
I'll tell you right now why I'd risk it. Because T. Higgins is day after day. It's he wants to stay in Cincinnati. He has a new agent, and this one also represents Jamar Chase. He wants to stay in Cincinnati. Do you know who else is a free agent option at wide receiver this year? Ankle fracture, Chris Godwin. We have Hollywood Brown and Amari Cooper. I don't want any of these guys. I don't either. That's why you table this discussion. The free agent wide receiver market is bad, and if T. Higgins really is going back to Cincinnati, we need to trade because there isn't a wide receiver worth taking.
Joe Milton. You'd trade for Joe Milton, is what you're trying to say. If you were one of these quarterback needy teams, you would be out there putting yourself out for a little Joe Milton. That's essentially what you're trying to say.
Oh my God! Yes, this is a clipable moment. This is how you go viral on TikTok 5 days before it's banned off of platforms. This dumbass on
you're trying to say that Joe
Milton to signing A.J. Brown. He said needing a wide receiver.
Because you're quarterback. Because you're wide receiver hungry. Why are you overpaying for a guy who may not be that good?
Joe Milton. You cannot compare one of the best wide receivers in the last 5 years to signing Joe Milton.
It's very similar.
God.
You're being bent over for a guy that you may not know that much about.
This is about signing a guy that's had one NFL start against the B team of Buffalo, and you have the audacity to compare him to a wide receiver that has produced 1,000 yards.
It's the same situation.
All but one season in the NFL, and he can do it off 70 receptions with an inferior pass game that also saw Devontae Smith. Spoiler alert, newsflash, also hasn't fallen off a cliff. Take a production dive as well.
He's like 4 years younger than A.J. Brown.
But what I'm saying is these guys, their values, they are both seeing less targets, less yards, target share, like all these things because of Jalen Hurts and because of Kellen Hurts because of Kellen Moore and because of the fact that they have an offense that's designed specifically for Saquon Barkley's success because they said going into the offseason, they looked around and they said, we're not going to be able to beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Well, I don't even think we're going to be able to beat Jared Goff or Brock Purdy in the AFC Championship game if we're saying, all right, Jalen, We have DeAndre Swift back here. You go out and you get into a duel with one of these better quarterbacks in the NFL. He can't do it. And that's why they go get the best running back in the – and that's why the 49ers got freaking Christian – like the teams that know they don't have top-end quarterback talent, they are the ones that in free agency or through trades get a top-tier running back. Derrick Henry's an exception. That's one exception I'm willing to make because, everyone actually thought he was over a cliff.
Yeah, and he was.
What? No, the Ravens were.
The Titans at the time, though, were not a contending team. It's understandable to let
what I'm talking about is I'm saying, like, what my argument is that most teams that are trading for these top-end running back talents are not – they're trading or signing in free agencies. Like, Saquon was a free agency
Huge difference.
Well, they're similar because I'm comparing Christian McCaffrey in this vein to teams that have made big money moves for a top-tier running back. They do not have top-end quarterbacks, except for Baltimore, only because, no one valued Derrick Henry. So they were able to get him on the cheap. If you're getting him for under $10 million for a running back that still is top 3 in the NFL, that is beyond impressive. That's great management on the part of the Baltimore Ravens. And also, Lamar Jackson is such a unique style of player and quarterback, one we've never seen before, that, like, he's different from a Jalen Hurts in terms of still being very potent in the passing game. He's throwing for over 4,000 yards, but he still very much is honestly one of the biggest running threats in the NFL, regardless of position. So he's a different conversation. But for the rest of these guys, I'm telling you, Jalen Hurts is not that guy.
It's like signing T. Higgins in free agency, trading for, like, I'd rather give up just the money because you have the money.
But and we're not right now. Cincinnati looks like they're going to re-sign. So why would you just want to wait?
I'm because I'm okay with tabling that for when you're actually ready to go put out the money and you're okay with missing on draft picks.
Cool, but a lot of these teams, the ones that compete, they've traded, like the ones that also develop quarterbacks, like the Bills did with Stephon, like they trade for elite wide receiver talent.
Top 2 quarterback. You want to have a real discussion? AJ,
was Josh Allen a top 2 quarterback when they signed Stephon? Josh Allen
was on his way, though. Oh, he was on his way, absolutely.
But how many seasons has Drake May played versus how many seasons has Josh Allen played when they signed Stephon Diggs?
3.
So in a year, all right, in 2 years, you're telling me you're not going to say Drake May is on his way to being a top 3 quarterback?
I'm ready to make that move in 3 years. 2 years.
Oh, why would you wait that long, though? I think the Bills
because you're not ready yet.
Josh Allen's development.
AJ Brown
you're the one
is
deciding
if we're ready or not,
because again, you can shore up your offensive line in a few quick moves. I'm willing to have a quick bottom.
Moves, dude. We just discussed at the beginning of this that tackle and all that stuff takes the longest. Why would you not spend that time
I'm saying it's the toughest to get in free agency and trading. So what I'm telling you is that I'm willing. Listen, I'm willing. I know it concerns you and you want Abdul Carter and you want us to have a guy that gets 10 sacks a season, even though we're still letting up 3-10 in the passing game every week. That I am more than willing to have a 20th ranked defense next year if it means that we have gotten 2 or 3 new tackles, a new X receiver, and hell, maybe even a new Z receiver in there. I'm willing to make that sacrifice. I don't know if you are. I'm willing because our best asset is Drake May. For an organization, from a business standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, we need to absolutely enforce that aspect of the organization. So we don't need to get offense and defense equally the same. Like, some teams draft primarily mostly defensive players some years, and then they do offensive players the next year. We have the ability with a player like this to say we need to support him as best we can now because he can take us to a different stratosphere, and then you can actually be an enticing competitive option in free agency for a lot of the mid-tier guys that can fill out some depth roles, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But I don't know why. Like,
those Bills teams had great defenses. They
had a couple solid defenses.
They had solid defenses.
They had a
better
couple
than
years
top
of
20.
Trey White being excellent. Yeah,
Milano, the Poyer, both of the safeties. Milano and freaking Edmonds, Rousseau, like they had.
So then, why did they need to wait 3 years before investing anything?
Because Josh Allen was not ready.
That is the dumbest argument I've ever heard.
You just said he wasn't ready. What are you talking about? The dumbest argument.
He wasn't ready for Stephon Diggs. I said you're the one that said 3 years because he's not ready. I'm like, you don't actually have to wait for him to be ready. If you look at Drake May, how do you get him to be freaking ready, dude? How do you get him to be ready? Because he seems to be developing mentally.
He's closer to being ready. The defense, the rest of the team is, dude. The rest of the team is
gonna-
not on the.
This
The
is
rest
your
of the team
week
is
now.
not on the same team. What?
This is your week now. This is your week now because you wanted to talk about when I made that take a couple weeks ago. You were like, "This is going on the talk." You're saying we're not making the playoffs this year. This is going on the talk. You're Josh Allen v. Drake May. Who's ready and who isn't ready to have an
The
X
rest
receiver?
of the team was
Who's
better.
allowed to have an X receiver? Is he not allowed to have an X receiver, Lucas?
They had a solid offensive line, and the part of the problem was going into Josh not being ready is he was running for his life. They sure up the line
He also
going
was
in.
less developed than Drake was at that point in time from like a
Without
passing
a
standpoint. And I've seen videos recently of him talking about how he developed different passing mechanics. And Drake May's worked on that from a footwork standpoint. These guys develop at different speeds, but they all develop. So why
A.J.
is you
Brown
wait
is gonna-
to get them top-end talent? Like, it's more
Both teams are ready
philosophical for
to
me. Like,
contend.
I'm willing to trade for a top-end receiving talent. The A.J. Brown one just, I think, makes sense from a lot of different reasons. Like, the
Does that
timing of
make
it just
you a
makes sense.
contender? Does A.J. Brown make you a contender? Those teams were ready to be contenders.
No
right when
single
they signed
player
Stephon
makes
Diggs.
I don't know about that.
That's what I'm saying. They had a team
They
that was
weren't-
ready to jump into contention with an X
but
receiver.
But you can jump into contention at least for a wild card spot if you get A.J. Brown, and then in 2 years' time you have a more developed passing attack. Drake May has a better feel for his deep ball because he wasn't a very accurate deep ball thrower this year, especially not when he throws to mediocre Kayshon Boutte, who has limited separation downfield. So I'm sorry if I'm not willing to sit back and wait for us not to get T. Higgins, and we're obviously not drafting Tet McMillan. I think we don't want us to draft Tet McMillan. So you know what? No, let's ride it out with another year of Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas because that seemed to work so well for us this year.
The O-line was part of the problem. The
He had a
O-line
couple
was the
tackles,
biggest
though.
problem. The O-line was without a doubt the biggest problem.
I wouldn't say that. I think honestly they're pretty equivalent. Like they're both bad.
Without a doubt.
No, they were worse in the run game. Honestly, the lack of run game production because of the way they were graded terribly as run game tackles specifically, and then Rashad. That's what I just fucking.
How? I'm saying that the offensive line makes more of an impact.
Interrupting me while I'm agreeing. What I'm saying is that, like, I said our first round pick, I want to take a tackle, and I also would like to take a tackle in the third round. And we have a number of tackles on free agency this year. I'd invest in one of them. I would give the bag to Ronnie Stanley. I would give.
You're not getting Ronnie Stanley.
Let's look. I would give Calvin Anderson some money. As I said, I'd draft Kelvin Banks, Dan Moore, who's graded as a top 50 tackle this year. Unfortunately, he injured his ankle against the Ravens in the wild card matchup. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Alaric Jackson has had a great season in LA. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. We have options. We don't have as many. They're unrestricted free agents. What do you mean? Why are they letting them go? We have the most cap space in the NFL. They're unrestricted free agents.
We will see. I don't think any of these. None of these guys are worth being paid at the top of the
Larry
market,
Jackson
and you're going to have
was graded as a top 20 tackle this year. I would take him, even if he's not going to be the tackle of the future. I would take if we're getting one of these young guys. And, maybe he's not ready to be a left tackle. We plug him in at the right. We get Alaric Jackson in as a left tackle. Our line's a little more healthy than this year. Like, why is it so hard to believe that we draft a tackle in the first round? Maybe we get another one in the third, and then we sign one that we're not – because obviously for tackle this year, you need to sign one draft one. Ideally, you could do the same for receiver. Maybe you end up – if you're not trading for A.J. Brown, you get an Isaiah Bond in the second or something. But why is it that, like, we can't suddenly address these needs in, multifaceted ways if we do trade for someone? You're acting like one trade is going to blow up our ability to make any other move on the scope of the roster, and suddenly the defense will, crumble into ash in midair, and we won't be able to address it whatsoever because we spent a second-round pick on this one guy. Like, that's not the way football works.
You're not getting him for just a second-round pick. You're giving up multiple picks.
But I'm saying on a per-year basis, if you're giving up 1 second this year and another second next year, right? Like, I'm saying, like, if you're looking at it from we can't address anything this year. Like,
you have to address things.
As the Buddha once said, there are multiple paths to the top of the mountain.
But okay, so here's my thing.
You can trade picks. We've been stockpiling picks for years, and we haven't hit on any of them.
So exactly, you got to freaking hit regardless. You're not trading. Why would you trade multiple players for a guy who's not going to impact your entire, who's not going to put you in this, with those 2 picks that you're going to give up, right? You have a chance to build something Whereas A.J. Brown is potentially this guy who's just going to get open downfield so that you have to get time for them to hit him. And then he's going to be a diva on the sideline, and it's going to piss off Drake May. Is he not on on a team that's literally number 2 in the NFC right now?
First of all, he caused no problems in Tennessee, and he was done wrong by management there, and he's playing for everybody's least head coach, Nick Sirianni, who year after year people question how he still has a job because he's such a douche and no one likes him. So all I'm going to say is that I think his prior relationship with Vrabes, I think these are different things. I'm not too worried about the character concerns. Every wide receiver is a diva to some extent. This really isn't that much of like an issue for me that I think it is for you. And another point I'll just make really quickly, it's really convenient that when it comes to the Eagles wanting to let A.J. Brown go, why would they do that when the threat he creates downfield, helps open up areas of the run game? And with their offensive line tooled the way it is, like that constant threat still makes it hard to, combat at the point of attack. Why is it that when it comes to us getting a deep threat that's name isn't T. Higgins, suddenly it's like having that guy is only a one-dimensional aspect of your offense and it does nothing for the rest of the team? Because it seems pretty inconvenient that it works that way. It works for both sides.
But you're the guy who's ragging on Kayshon Boutte the whole year. So
because even you don't have to scheme for Kayshon Boutte.
Even if we've never seen A.J. Brown without a dominant, bring another guy down into the box type run game.
Really? What did they have the last 2 years? DeAndre Swift.
Philly? Dude.
Yes.
They were still running the ball, bro. Like, what if
just from a pure volume standpoint, and from a Jalen Hurts standpoint, and we have what I'm saying is when it wasn't Derrick Henry, it was Jalen Hurts. We have Drake May, who can also run the football and creates a threat that you have to bring a guy in the box that potentially is either spying or coming downhill because you don't know if we start running some RPOs, if we start doing some fun things. Drake May is a constant threat out of the backfield, out of the pocket, to scramble, to beat you for 30 yards when you thought you had everything covered. That is another aspect of the game that, again, is convenient for the Eagles, but is a non-factor for us, apparently.
Okay, ready? Rushing offense for the Eagles the last 2 years, right? 2023, 24% stacked box. 2022, 24.3. All right, now we'll go to Drake May's time in the Patriots. Ready?
You're saying this season when you do
17% of the time. 17% of the time.
That's a 7% difference.
Yes.
Versus the best offensive line in the NFL in an established quarterback like Jalen Hurts from a run game standpoint. What are we even talking about here? Why would you stack the box against this Patriots offensive line, dog? Why would you do it?
Because you have Drake May. We just said Drake May is supposed to be taking people down.
What I'm saying is, this is predicated on the fact that you do invest in your offensive line because teams are able to kind of bite the bullet here and there because they don't have to worry about it because
exactly.
the Darian Lowe will fall on his own ankles. So what I'm saying is we can't compare that sort of offense and stacked. And again, 7% to me is marginal when you're talking about teams that are that different on a talent pool standpoint. I'm honestly impressed it's not huge.
And if differences like percentages like that are huge in the NFL. Like I'm telling you, the percent difference is huge. Not trying to sound like freaking. But 7%, because you're not doing it on third downs. You're not doing it on second and passing. 7%, you have to do it on those downs against those teams. And that's where the difference is. If you can get a draw in or a QB or a zone read in on 2nd and 8 and pick up the first down, that's huge for your offense. Huge.
And nothing was huge for the Patriots offense this year. This is why
nothing.
This is why the nerds like arguments to me are just like, let's throw statistics out there that don't mean much when you're talking about one of the worst offenses in the NFL and then one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. Because like a lot of it's just like, well, look at the stacked box rate. It's like, all right, like,
and that's just when they ran.
We're talking about apples and oranges, though. We're talking about what our team can look like after investing in an offensive line and then getting an X receiver. Which I think opens up Ramondre's game completely, and then he can go back to being a potential top 10 to 15 running back in the NFL.
I'm going to have to see them do everything. I'm so scarred from this team that I truly have no confidence that they can put – and I get it's a new coaching staff, Don't care. Do not care one bit. I have no confidence that they can build a solid team. None.
Well, look, that I will credit you with more than I think dismissing top end talent because we're not ready. That I agree with. I think if you're scarred and you're just like I don't even know anymore. Like honestly, I accept your depression more than I expect your indignation because at least for that I'm like, well, at least he's been beaten in submission versus he's just giving up like foolishly. So
No,
I'll respect that. But listen, we have spent like 40 minutes on a Mike Vrabel intro pod talking about the A.J. Brown debate, which clearly I was worried we're going to be able to get mad at. Very much we're able to get mad at it. Now, it certainly helped that your phone died in the middle of it because you never keep it freaking charged.
No, it started at like 85, 90%. I promise you. My laptop just dies.
I believe you. I mean, mine's at 28. My phone's at 28 right now. But I've been lowering. We set the record for F-bombs on a podcast for sure. This time around, so that's been pretty. I don't think we said any. I said one, and you just said two.
I just said one, and all right.
No, you said two because you said it, and then you stopped, and then you said it again. I don't worry. I have it. I put the time down so you know when to edit it. I put the time down. It's 1:14. And I'm pretty sure my F-bomb was probably like 108, 107, somewhere around there. I was trying to keep track because I know that can be a pain in the ass to have to go back and change. But honestly, I'm excited we got this angry, and I'm pissed that as a point of emphasis to talk about how I think we can invest in tackles, I just threw out a lot of names that I actually want to discuss in earnest, namely maybe a Ronnie Stanley, maybe a Jedrick Wills, but more so. But why are you saying that?
You're not getting Ronnie Stanley.
We can pay him more than anyone else can. That's all I'm going to say. And even then, like, okay.
Why would you want to do that?
Why wouldn't you?
Why would he take that much money? It's probably going to be less money in tax, right? Like, it's going to end up being less money than if he were just to go re-sign and be on a good team with Baltimore.
I'm not sure if you pay him enough that's really a concern. And I'm not sure if he's like, yeah, let me be on a good team with Baltimore that's going to lose in the AFC Championship every year because Patrick Mahomes keeps eating our lunch money. Like, after a while, people are tired of losing late in the playoffs, and they want to make more money and then maybe get an extra month off at the end of the season. So, and again, that's not to discredit, again, Dan Moore, Alaric Jackson, they're guys that aren't necessarily name value, household family names. These are guys that can be top 50 players at the position, which we have none of at tackle. We have bottom 150. So let's just invest in guys that are going to be, if let's just say the league is a spectrum, guys like in the top third or 40% of the league. Let's go with that first before we, think that we can get Lane Johnson and build for another 5 years because you don't need your offensive line to have Lane Johnson in order to get your passing game up and to develop Drake May.
Of course not.
So that's why I'm like, waiting to go get an X receiver, might just be trying to kick the can, and then we're the same conservative organization that everyone's going to love to hate, and then we're going to force Vrabel out when Elliott Wolf's not making the right moves because we're just getting, too patient for our own good instead of making decisive, quick moves like the firing of Gerard Mayo was in order to develop our young quarterback and in order to modernize our NFL offense and bring it into the 21st century. Because you're not going to do that without a number one receiver.
No, you need to, but I also the receiver's the piece you can plug in last.
Dude, it's so different from what you had said just throughout the season. And you had been such a big proponent of the number one receiver. You were like, get Drake a receiver. You've been saying that since we drafted him, and suddenly the turntables for you. And look, I respect the fact you got
all these
an
great
opinion.
Teams running the ball so dominantly, and it's so fun to watch.
What's the last team that won a Super Bowl that was running the ball dominantly?
The Chiefs.
Dominantly?
Dominantly?
Not dominantly.
Brother.
Not dominantly.
Now we got to go to rushing. 2023.
They were running the ball well. They had good tackles so they could run on the outside, and I think Pacheco was pretty solid, and Jerick McKinnon, for a couple years was getting some, decent pass catching yards in there, but
4.3 yards per play.
Oh, okay. All right, that's all right.
That's really good. What are we talking about?
You're saying from the ground game?
Yes.
What's the league average on that? And again, taking into account they have two of the best tackles in the NFL. Or sorry, guards.
4.0 is the average.
All right, so they're above league average.
That's dominant.
That's not all right.
That's
I'm talking about
game,
a team. Yeah, all right. If you want to talk about yards per play, that's one thing. We're also talking about a team that again can't afford to stack the box because they had Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I don't know where. Like you're acting like Mahomes isn't the reason why the run game can take off. I'm talking about a team that primarily channels its offensive output through the run game. That is not the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's not kid ourselves into thinking that that's a Kansas City Chiefs team while they have the best quarterback in the NFL on the roster.
Run percentage. Actually, rather low. 38.6. That said, nearly an effective running game. That I'll give it to you. That's like they were not throwing the ball. This year, though?
It's more this year for sure.
They run the ball very effectively.
I don't know. Like I think they run the ball effectively in the red zone. I mean, if they hadn't had Pacheco for most of the year, Carson Steele wasn't looking very good. Kareem Hunt was pretty much only good because of volume, and they were kind of forced into that role because the receiving core was decimated by injuries, and Travis Kelce isn't really the player he used to be. And people want to talk about the new Mahomes injury of the week that always seems to happen in late November, but we got another one of those. So I think like volume is different from effectively. I think they were actually a better running team last year than they are this year. You can pull up your splits again, but I'm pretty sure Pacheco last year was a lot better than the Hunts and the Steels of this year and the post-injury Pacheco. But again, this is not a tomato. Like I'm just saying, like
they were better last year.
Yeah, we have not seen a dominant running team win the Super Bowl.
They get there though, dude.
Since
2018, New England.
And that wasn't. We didn't even run the ball that dominantly in that game. Like we weren't an offense. That was just defensive output. That was a poor offensive performance, and that was excellent coaching by Belichick. And still, you had the greatest quarterback of all time that won in a shootout with Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. So it's like we got there not because of Sony Michel and company.
You need a great quarterback either way. Like
yes, you do. Like, that much is true.
And if
that's
if
the
we're
most
building
important
around...
part. And if you want to get Drake great, you give him the tackles and you give him a receiver.
You get him the tackles first, though. And you
can do both in one offseason. You can get a good tackle and a great receiver. It's easier to get a great receiver before it is to get a great tackle.
Great tackle?
I'm saying it's easier to get a great receiver than it is a great tackle.
Exactly. That's why you plug and play with a receiver. You get the rest of the team to be good because tackles last longer.
Why can't? What's the point?
And then you get a receiver. You plug him in there.
Why not invest in a receiver now, even if he's not? Like, what's the point of getting? Like, do you think Stephon Diggs was detrimental? What do you think it's detrimental? The tackle you get in the first round that I just suggested, or one of the three guys you get in free agency that I just suggested.
We're banking on a first-round pick that we've established isn't.
Then there's no other way to get a tackle. So in your estimation, we wait 3 years, keep drafting tackles until one of them becomes All-Pro, and then what the? Oh my God! You can't seriously say the things that you say when you say them.
I entirely.
You think we wait 3 years before investing in anything just so that we can see if one of the tackles finally hits?
You have to get.
Oh my God, dude! When did you become such a Belichickian fool?
Belichickian fool.
You're a Belichickian fool. You're like Bill, but dumber.
Line. That's not fair, but
it is totally fair.
This is coming from this guy who's just lying.
I'm lying. You just tried to pull up numbers that didn't help your argument 2 seconds ago.
4.3 yards is dominant. If you can get 3 yards on every play. What?
I need my hat back. I tossed it in anger. I'll put on some beanie in the middle of this podcast.
Let me mark that down.
Honestly, I've been hearing a lot of the guys. I heard Taylor Kyle's, people saying the S word all over podcasts. I was like, damn, I guess people just say this on sports podcasts. But at the same time, we need jobs and we're not employed. So
yeah, that's the big one. No, okay. I'm ready. I'm okay with it. If you're like, I'm trying to make you a little bit pissed off, but I'm okay with it.
All right, good. I'm happy if that's part of it.
No, it is 1,000%.
Because
But
when we first drafted Drake, you said our first need more than anything is an X receiver to help develop him. And now you've just changed your tune
how
entirely into being conservative.
how is the like I don't it's okay to change your takes, dude. Like
No,
it's
that's okay. But I think that you changed a fundamental outlook on how it is you develop a top
yes.
talent at the quarterback position over the course of 4 months, 5 months. And
Because he's been making these guys look okay, and I think the biggest problem is the fact that you A cannot run the ball and B cannot pass protect. I
you also
like
can't can't gain separation. You don't have a single receiver that is of
Top
2
Douglas
or up
gained
on a.
separation, so it's not that.
He gains separation within like 10 to 15 yards. Like he's not someone that gets separation at 3 layers of the field. He's a good
Absolutely.
separator. He's a good separator like at the line of scrimmage. But again, like if that's your biggest threat to bust coverage, that's something you can easily scheme for. Kayshon Boutte is not much of a threat unless you have other guys taking away some defensive focus. You don't have to scheme for Kayshon Boutte. You don't even have to really like do any film on Kayshon Boutte. You just show up and you go, okay.
Dude, he cooked the twos, so that's not even fair to say.
Cooked
And you
is
want
an
to know
exact.
how cooked. Every route he was running.
Drake May's ball placement cooked, my friend, because I still.
I'm talking about against Buffalo, dude. When Joe Milton was staring
that
at
wasn't
him,
a cook, bro. That wasn't a cook.
he was
That
cooking
wasn't a
that.
cook, dog.
He was
Okay,
cooking that day.
He
That
had a
whole
couple,
day.
but again, that honestly ball placement was pretty solid.
He
Ball
was
placement was pretty
Joe
solid by
Milton
Joe
was
Milton,
staring at him the
but
whole
also,
day. Joe Milton knows who the guy is.
but but also
Go watch the film, Joshua. He was staring at him.
But he was staring at him, but also like again, you're talking about the Buffalo 2s and 3s, and some of it wasn't just like, oh, Kayshon Boutte might have actually got separation for once. Like this is surprising to me. It was also like I've never seen safeties look as lost as they are out there on the field.
Dude, he literally started
not
this
because
weekend for
Kayshon,
Buffalo, bro.
not because
oh my god,
not because Kayshon. You're talking about Taylor Rapp here, but
safeties too.
But I'm saying like you look at some of these are guys that has been rumored didn't even want to win the game. Like you're watching safeties look like they have never touched the football field out there. Like Joe Milton decides to roll right, and all of a sudden people forget where they are. They start looking around.
That
like
is a superhuman throw. Superhuman throw.
Oh my god, bro! If Jesse Bates is back there, that's never a completion.
You're talking about the best safety potentially in the last 5 years, dude.
Oh, okay, calm down. I was just naming like an adequate.
Jesse Bates, dude. Jesse Bates.
Why'd you just get so much louder?
Because Jesse Bates is phenomenal, dude. Bates
he's a good safety, but I'm saying like put an actual receiver,
a ball hawk,
a safety of like adequate talent that wants to win a football game.
That's
in the secondary,
a superhuman throw.
And this Kayshon Boutte circuitous like this little.
How are you
going to
give the backside receiver crap on a touchdown for
Joe
scoring on a scramble? I don't understand.
I'm not giving him crap. I'm saying you can't say that he's cooked. No, I'm saying this is a Lucas Cobery argument that I'm attacking. I'm not attacking Kayshon Boutte. I'm attacking I'm attacking the fact that you were trying to make a player something that he isn't. You are trying to make a high-end 2 out of a mid-end 3.
I'm not saying he's a high-end 2, dude. That has never been my precipice.
You said he is the best 2 that could ever come out of New England football, literally last week.
What? Okay.
You said he is literally the best 2 receiver you'd ever
2.
seen.
He could be an average 2.
You go on the TikTok and you're like, oh, Kayshon Boutte is the best 2
Go pull up
God's
the
ever
TikTok.
created.
Okay.
And I think he's very fine physically, and I wish I could see him in the
Kayshon
Patriots
Boutte
locker room shower. You've said all this outrageous stuff about Kayshon Boutte, and very little of it has ever come to fruition.
He literally hooped the day after the game we talked. He was hooping, dude. Whether or not it's against, he hooped. Whether or not he was playing against good, what do you want him to do against that competition? Not look like a number 1 receiver?
LiAngelo Ball hooped against Lithuanian farmers, bro. I don't know what you want.
All right, that's just not fair. Guy's not willing to take his lumps on Kayshon Boutte.
I'm not going to take any lumps on Kayshon Boutte. You can give me lumps in other areas. Kayshon Boutte's not where I die on hill because I have been pleased with his outlook. I'm so happy he's turned into a practice squad player to a guy that deserves to be on your. Dude, into the season, he was a player we weren't activating on our starting roster.
I thought you were saying
I'm saying he was a practice squad player, and he's become someone that has necessitated a roster spot and then probably a top 3 spot in your
Earned.
receiver room.
Yes.
That's the same thing. What I'm saying is
Earned.
that, all right, I mean, if you, like, let's cool it a little bit with that, because, like, we're acting like he had, the competition in that room was really severe and he wasn't dealing with, imploding receivers with little to no success in the NFL. And again, like, I love how we want to get all up in arms about A.J. Brown's dramatics when every single person in our receiver room this year has had some sort of controversy. Kayshon Boutte has publicly said things that he's had to walk back and get called out on.
Who cares?
So,
Who cares? It was a.
That's
a dude. That's okay, but that's on a 15-2 team compared to complaining about real stuff that's actually meanful on a team that was bad with clearly a coach that didn't know what he was doing the first year.
Sirianni doesn't know. First of all, I think Sirianni is, the fact that he's kept the job is impressive, because I don't think his players particularly love him like that. They've never once backed him up in the media. They don't. What'd you say?
They went to a Super Bowl 2 years ago. They're about to go to the NFC Championship this year.
Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. Look how fast he gets run out of multiple jobs without success. Like, you don't have to be a genius to, like, make, like, it's you can have one of the best rosters in football and make it to the Super Bowl as Nick Sirianni and look like a freaking genius,
All right. We got to end this. We're just going to go for hours. All right.
This is Eagles Unfiltered, dude. Jeez Louise.
Low key, dude. You're not wrong. All right. That was a good one. I think
that was the most heated we've ever got, for sure.
Without a doubt. I apologize that my laptop wasn't friggin' charged. This thing dies like an MF. That ain't stopping Kayshon Boutte, baby. All right.
Is he a Lithuanian plumber that can't stop Kayshon Boutte?
Dude, he would cook.
I swear to God, we're gonna see Kayshon Boutte putting out a song called, like, swerving on that, corner
crazy,
whoa
dude.
In 4 years when he's out of the league.
Dude, your guy Marcus Jones is already doing it, dude. We already got SoundCloud players on our team.
That's why I'm saying let's get Charvarius Ward in free agency, dog. I'm telling you.
I would be so cool with that.
Yes. Yes,
right.
We can do it because we have cap space.
That's a position I'm okay investing in right now.
There should be every position we're okay investing in. We need all of the positions.
Oh, I agree, but not draft picks. Like, draft picks I would reserve for certain positions right now.
Yeah, we say that, and then we end up drafting Jalen Polk and Elliott Wolf. Looks like, this generation's Helen Keller. And I think sometimes we need to take our lumps and take guys that are going to win us games now and develop our quarterback.
We've seen that I can get used to anything and I can change my opinion and be optimistic, because I believe that's the way you should be as a fan. Whether or not you agree with this decision first, you got to swing it.
And I'm willing to be wrong, because I would love for, all of our draft and develop strategies to actually work. And I think with Vrabel, they have a higher chance of working. I just, we'll see what Elliott Wolf can cook up with his new best buddy in the,
Inside jokes and all, baby.
Yeah, inside jokes and all. Jeez Louise, dude.
All right, this has been ExPats.
We'll
see you guys soon. I don't know when, but soon.
We just broke up.
No. One time only.
We're like the It's Always Sunny pod. Yeah, come back next week. We won't be here.
Yeah, that was crazy. All right, we'll see you, fellas.
Yeah, peace out.
And lady.